Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Henley, and I'm here with Pleasant Hill Historians. And so tonight I'm going to go over the 1906 to 1967 now PA death certificates. And so I had some technical difficulty setting this up, so I thank you for your patience. And I hope that everyone that was trying to find this was able to. I'm going to go ahead and share it on the page for the time being as well. But if there is somebody, I apologize, but you can always watch it later. We record it on Facebook, and then we also post it onto our YouTube page as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so you all will be able to see my presentation on PA death certificates. Give me 1 second. Okay, well, thank you all once again for joining us tonight. As I said, 1906 to 1967 now, I noticed that Ancestry had updated their piece to 1967, but when I first created this event, it was 1966. So I haven't done I just noticed that, so I apologize. I haven't done my research on understanding if they've actually increased a year or not. But if somebody does know, please go ahead and post it in the chat, and I'm happy to learn more about it myself. We learn every day, and so I think it's a wonderful piece. I'm just posting the link really quickly into the to the event, and so you all will be able to see it. So here we go. So again, my name is Andrew Henley. I received my bachelor's in history and information science at the Westminster College in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. And I have continued my education now. I'm working on my Master's of Library and Information Science at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm president and founder of Pleasant Hill Historians. We do genealogical research, and I like to do these nice educational platforms as well. So thank you all for joining us with this. I am an amateur genealogist. I'm working to become a certified genealogist, but I also do historical research, as I said. So I dedicate my life to history and education, and what you can see here are some pieces that we have worked on. So Civil War Series is an annual event that we host with the Lawrence County Historical Society. The middle one is an information panel at Millennium Park in Neshannock Township, and then also Quaker Falls in Quakertown. This is in Mahoning Township, Lawrence County. And I see Elaine Chambers is on, and thank you, Elaine, for joining us. I see you said the 1967 is available on Ancestry. So yes, I had noticed that, but I don't know the reason why. And I hope that if you're listening, you could inform me of that. So I appreciate you joining in tonight. So here we go. The next one. So our goals for this evening. The purpose of a death certificate. I know it's very straightforward, but I wanted to go over that. The importance of the information from the death certificate, what vital records are, and the genealogical information you can really pull from these materials. So then as I go forward, I did want to say we're only focusing in 1906 to 1967. And so there are resources that you can find previous to 1906 and then after 1967. Some of the resources, as I said, vary, but pre-1906, many of them are actually based on a community or county level, maybe even a church level. So your resources can be church records, cemetery records, newspapers, Bibles. What's nice is if you're looking for, if you can't find an individual, try to find their sibling or their parent or daughter and see if they're mentioned on their deeds or wills or in their tax records. If you have, or if you're fortunate enough to have a family Bible, check the family Bible records. And you can also, if you're from a more metropolitan area, sometimes you will find them in newspapers. And you could always use those as different resources as well. So I did want to point out kind of where we're going to find it, and I'll take you all through it, but it's within the card catalog. I like to use the card catalog, but you can also find it other ways. It is the Pennsylvania death certificates. So I pulled the screenshot of that here. So it's Pennsylvania death certificates 1906 to 1967. And so you are able to search these records by first name, last name, middle name, and then you're able to go through and add as much as the information you know. You can also do it by year, and you can search that way as well. Sometimes phonetic last names might be under a different spelling, so you might want to check that and see what information you can pull from there. So I want to take you into Ancestry. If you have an Ancestry account, you can access this. If you don't have an Ancestry account, if you're ready to buy an Ancestry account, I always say that. It's a big investment. So if you're ready to learn more about these death certificates, they're available on Ancestry. However, I believe they are also available at the PA Vital Records. And so I'll also pull up that website so you can see it. So let me go ahead and open that. And so Ancestry, I'll go through this first. And then I'm also going to pull up PA Death Certificate, Vital Records. And so here we go. So there's sometimes a cost associated with ordering a copy. And you can see here that there are, excuse me, I was just on this website, so I'm just blanking on the piece that we were looking for. Okay, well, let me go to Ancestry first, and then I can navigate through that later. So as I said, I go to the card catalog. It's easier to access some of these specific records, but then it'd be Pennsylvania death certificate. I'm just going to do Pennsylvania death. Here we go. So this is the landing page for the PA death certificates 1906 and 1967. You can search by year all the way to 1967 now. And it looks like Ancestry, it's fairly recent because Ancestry still says through 1966 in their description. So here, Elaine gave us a quick answer. She says, I believe that the PA archives has an agreement with Ancestry to release 1 year of deaths and 1 year of births per year. A birth record cannot be released until it is 101 years old, and death records cannot be released until they are at least 51 years old. Before that, they are considered confidential records. So that's interesting. My friend who's 102, I can pull up his birth certificate. So that'd be a fascinating piece. So what I wanted to show you all, I had on here on the main slide, this is actually my great grandmother, Hilda Henley. And so I wanted to pull that one up, and she died in 1941. But I can also search some pieces here. Here she is, 1941. So my great grandmother, Hilda Christina Nelson, and here she is. This is her death certificate, 1941. Now, what's interesting about this, so you have your place of death. That's some information that you have. It actually goes down for this one. It was she was living at her residence. She lived in the community for 50 years. So here's some information, but the one thing we want to note while we're reading through all of this, the information is only as accurate as the witness was able to provide. Luckily, the witness was her husband, so hopefully her husband knew a lot of information about her. And here she went ahead, they went ahead and put some pieces. She was married. She was 70, the age of her husband is 76. And she was born on November 25th, 1870. Here's her age. So 70 years, 5 months, and 6 days. Her birthplace was in Holland, Sweden. She was a housewife. It does give her parents, so this is nice if you're doing your ancestry to pull some of this information. Nels Peter Nelson, and then Johanna Anderson, and then it shows the informant. Now the informant was, it's not always a relative. Sometimes it's whoever is there at the time of the death to give some information. So the challenge is that if the informant doesn't know this information, then it won't be recorded accurately or at all. So it's one thing to take that to consideration whenever you're looking at a lot of these pieces. But then I'm just zooming in real quick. It does state that the burial would be at King's Chapel Cemetery. The funeral director was Joseph Rice Company in Newcastle. The registrar was Martha Bigley. And then it also gives whether or not there was an autopsy or any operations. But then it gives some of the medical reasons for their death as well. So the date of death, April 1st, 1941, at 10 p.m. And they certified her dead. Deceased from 19. So I'm just reading through some of these pieces, and I apologize. I'm trying to understand some of the handwriting. So, and the immediate cause of death was a cerebral excuse me, I was not a medical anything within biology. So cerebral arterial sclerosis, and I think that is coronary heart disease. It's like it's a hardening of your arteries within your heart, and so I think that would be heart disease. And then it says due to a cardiovascular disease. So it is a cardiac reason for why she had died, and it then lists some other information. And so what information you can really pull from this is that you can see who was nearby. Sometimes these are relatives. So this one was my great grandfather was the informant here, and so you can state that some of this information is a little more accurate than if it was a random person that was really giving this information. But all things considered, sometimes the husbands don't know or the wives don't know some of the information about their parents, or sometimes even their birth year. But hopefully that is an accurate piece. So I wanted to go through and see, so we've been able to pull a lot of information. If you're wanting to learn more about any predisposed genetic conditions that you might want to know about, you can always look into your medical reasons for why they've died. Personally, you might think I'm crazy, but I've listed a lot of my relatives that have died, and then I look at their death certificates to see what the reason or cause of death was. So whether it was pulmonary, cardiac, whether it was a carcinogen, or any cancer related, whether it was an accident. I know genetically you wouldn't be predisposed to accidents, but maybe we're just an accidental family. And so it's one thing to just take into consideration when you're looking at these. I know Ancestry has Ancestry DNA, or you've done 23andMe, but these could offer some other really interesting insights to your family's health history that you might not have had access to previously. And so one of the pieces here, let me pull this up. I wanted to note on this. I found this piece here that was noted within the ancestry record as records of stillbirths were required to be filed as both birth and death records. So you may find records of stillborn children in this collection. And so this is where your birth certificates and your death certificates could help you find a stillborn child. And I know that I actually found one of my great grandmother, I believe. And so I'm just going to pull up that one just so you have an idea of what it looks like. And let me see, it was on my mother's side. And Julia, 1919. And so I have this death certificate. She would have been, well, this wasn't stillborn. Hold on. I think she was 1 month old. So this death certificate notes premature birth. It's she was 5 weeks and 2 days, so it wasn't really a stillbirth, but it was a premature birth. But this is another death certificate to look at, and so you're seeing the address of the individual, the name of the individual, and then you're also seeing the length of life. But then you're seeing the informant. This is a 1919 death certificate, so similar pieces you're going to find within this one, and then the burials at St. Joseph Cemetery in 1919. What's interesting is that this is also a pertinent to influenza. This was not an influenza-related death. However, it in 1918, 1919, you were having deaths related to this, deaths related to the 1918-1919 influenza pandemic. And so there was a mass burial in St. Joseph's at the time as well. Now, Elaine also said in PA, stillborns were recorded on birth records and with no death records. I'm not sure how the other states recorded stillbirths. So it looks like Ancestry was wrong, but I can definitely pull that piece up once again. Thank you, Elaine, for that quick fact check. And let me pull up that collection. So let me, here, yeah, so here, that's the phrase that I see there, but you know, and thank you, Elaine, for pointing that out. So in PA, to have both a birth and death record, the child had to take at least one breath. This has now changed again, and stillborns are recorded on their own types of certificates. So I wish Elaine was co-hosting this with me, because she is a wonderful asset that has worked with vital records for the majority of her career, if not all of her career. She's amazing at what she does. And so I wanted to highlight some of the collections that Ancestry has. And I know that a lot of my followers are from Pennsylvania, so I figured I'd highlight this. Now, in the meantime, I did want to see the PA birth records now that you had mentioned that, Elaine. And so let me see if I can pull them up. Now, what I might have used this term before, but vital records are birth and death records. And hold on. So it's all the way to 1911 right now. So 1911 delayed. I was just looking at the certificates. So these are their birth certificates, giving similar information about like the father and the mother. There's more of their birthplaces listed here and their present address. So it's a good thing to really look at both if the individual was born after 1906. Previous to 1906, as I said, that you can reference the other resources that are available here: newspapers, Bible records, cemetery records, wills, deeds, tax records, church records. And I hope that you'd be able to find them that way. Sometimes there might not be any record of them, and so that's one thing to consider. So I hope that you've learned a lot through these exercises. I'm happy doing them. If you do have other questions, feel free to message us. I have a nice team of people that I can bounce some of the questions off of. So, the contact information is on the last slide, or if you follow us on Facebook, you're welcome to message us there. Thank you for joining us this evening. I know the last couple were short, but sweet to the point. I wanted to really go over this, and I wanted to touch base with you all once again. The registration for the Civil War series opened Monday. And so if you're interested in learning more about the Civil War series or how to register, you can go to lawrencechs.org/Civil War and learn more about it that way. Before I go ahead and just hit play, I want to touch base. So Elaine said, I have a stillborn birth. In my ancestry file, the surname is Clark. Date of birth was 6/24/1920. So let me go ahead. I want to pull that up just so you can see what it looks like. So it would be a stillborn birth. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up just real quick. And it is Clark and stillborn. Here we go. So Elaine has this as a death certificate for the stillborn child, last name Clark. So this gives you a nice visual tool to look at. So 737 Court Street. You're looking at June 24th, 1920, a stillborn. And it says a fall 10 days ago of the mother, about 10 days ago. So the mother had fallen about 10 days ago, or so they had said that had caused the stillbirth, sadly. But it does give the mother and father's name. So this is an interesting piece. It does say like there was at Oak Park Cemetery. If you've ever been to Oak Park Cemetery, then there is a section for stillbirths. But Elaine did make a correction. So stillbirths are on death certificates, not birth certificates. So one thing just to note there. So without further ado, I'm just going to hit play. And so go ahead and just enjoy this nice video about our Civil War series at the Historical Society. Registration is open. It's only $20 this year because it's going to be online, but there's only 20 seats available. So I highly recommend, if you know somebody interested in the Civil War, and you're welcome to register on here for students to learn more about the Civil War. So let me play this video for you.
You realize in 9 short days, we'll be on a bus at this time, heading to Gettysburg, and these places will come alive that we've talked about. Okay, yesterday we finished with Pickett's charge across that open field for less than an hour, 50 minutes, 11,800 of them came marching across that field right into Union artillery fire. For the last 2 summers, through the Lawrence County Historical Society, we've provided a youth program on the Civil War. We've taken 11 and 12-year-olds from the county schools, and we've brought them together for about 3 weeks, and we did some lessons on the Civil War with a focus on the Battle of Gettysburg.
Robert E. Lee had come up from the South attempting to go to Washington and have a major victory in a little town called Gettysburg, a crossroad, with about 2,000 people. And the Union forces realized that this is where it's going to happen.
Mount Jackson was the main town the Battery B members came from. There were some from Annan Valley, but there were also some from Newcastle. But this uniform, the red, means artillery. They had red trim on everything, even on the back. And these pants were pretty much issue that everybody else wore. The infantry, it was the blue, but it had a light blue stripe.
We topped it off with a reenactment group, the 10th Pennsylvania, took the kids out into the lawn and drilled them and marched them, and they became soldiers in a matter of minutes. Order, arms, fire! We topped this whole class off with a trip down to Gettysburg. It's a class I started about 2 years ago after having taught in the Mohawk district for 37 years. And after having taken about 31 groups of fifth graders and their parents down to Gettysburg. When I retired, I wanted to keep this going, keep this alive. The kids are very enthused. It gives them a deeper appreciation of history. And we hope to do this for many years to come.
All right, well, again, thank you for joining us. I do have a new blog article out. So it's Australia's Bush Culture at Risk. And so I'm going to go ahead and just pull it up for you. And so it's, you can navigate to it by going to phist/blog. And you can, I think it would be the first one showing. So here it is, in Australia's Bush Culture at Risk. So if you have some time, give it a read and let me know what your thoughts are. So thank you once again for joining me this evening. Next Friday, we're going to do another one. And so I'm trying to do this on every week at 6 o'clock on Friday. So if you have any questions, there's my email, there's the website. And if you follow us on Facebook, you're welcome to message us there. So thank you once again for joining us to learn more about PA death certificates 1906 to 1967.